Welcome back to Canadian Justice, where we're discussing the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan and how Canadian immigration and refugee laws work. Professor Steidman, I want to turn to you. The Canadian government's been criticized for the speed at which they've been getting people out of Afghanistan. In particular, they've been criticized for not getting translators or security who assisted Canadian military out in time. Now the government's sending in more planes, and the airport seems to be secured for the time being. So do you think that the government's going to be able to help more people because of that?
Absolutely. We can look at a lot of different dimensions of this response. Clearly, the bigger problems were before the last year. Ever since the Doha Accord, there should have been more of a priority of getting people out, because once Trump committed the United States to leaving, the writing was on the wall. It happened faster than we expected, but we should have been working on it along the way, figuring out ways to get people from Afghanistan who might not be able to access the internet easily to do the documentation, to find people to work with, our people in the country, before things broke down. Now, I would say, there were reports this morning of asking the Prime Minister about Special Operations Forces, finding people, and the answer is he's not going to tell you. Right now, he's not going to tell people whether the Special Operations Force is doing that kind of work, because if they are, we don't want to publicize it. The Taliban do watch our media, and so we don't want to tell them what we're doing. There's already been news about the French and the British doing those kinds of things. And so that kind of stuff is best done behind the scenes without a spotlight on it. But as long as Americans hold the airport, we can take people who get to the airport. The real challenge, of course, is getting through the Taliban to get to the airport, and they themselves are selecting. And I don't really know what the logic of their selection is. I'm not sure they do either. But it does mean that people who try to get to the airport, some of them get through and some of them don't.
Now, Ms. Ahmadi, I want to talk about that 20,000 commitment that the federal government made. They said that they'll bring 20,000 Afghan refugees to Canada under special categories, including women leaders and people who are human rights activists. What can you tell me about that program and how it's being implemented, and is it being implemented right now?
So unfortunately, Christine, apparently there was an announcement made yesterday as well on the update for that humanitarian program, because there are two programs. One is called the immigration program, which is already being implemented. The second one, which is the one you're speaking of, is the humanitarian program. However, there's no updates. It's just a restatement of what has already been announced in August 2021. I would have to agree with Professor Steve in saying that we were well aware of the situation in Afghanistan end of 2020, and we should have been well prepared for this much more. People could have, worked on their documentations better. People could have had access to electricity. There's a lot of parts. One of my clients is in Kunduz underground, and he's been sending me images of his daughters underground who have no electricity. And guess what? My client is illiterate. He worked in the military of Afghanistan, and he doesn't even know how to read. So how is he able to help his wife, who also is illiterate, fill out those forms? So these situations, they should have been foreseen. Unfortunately, we were not well prepared for those things. And I'm just a Toronto based lawyer in Toronto, and I was well aware of what was going to go down with the Doha deal. So I'm sure we could have been well prepared in doing that as well. In any case, the policy is not implemented at the moment. We're all waiting for new announcements. Today, apparently there was another update, but when you go on the site, there's no update there.
So, Mr. Mirzad, what can you tell me about this 20,000 number, and does it include people like the Hazara, who we know are at risk of persecution under the Taliban?
Yeah, so I completely agree, and I echo what Nilofer said as well, that there is no clarity or details on these programs. So I have to say that the response that, while I actually commend and applaud the response of the government in Canada as a whole, I feel that we waited way too long. For instance, for the resettlement of the interpreters, let's start with that one. We jumped on the bandwagon way after the Americans and the Brits and Europeans. We only did that, and I'm actually privy to some of the inner circle of activists here across Canada, and I saw firsthand how long it took to lobby the government before it committed to saving those people. The announcement of the 20,000 resettlement project was announced on Friday, the 16th of August, 2 days prior to a federal election being called. And most of the people that we have a relationship with on the Hill, MPs, members of parliament, they are all candidates right now and stripped away from any authorities or flexibility that they could have shown to help us. And as far as
it creates huge amount of problems, the fact that we're in an election right
Absolutely.
now and lack of direction.